Hello, and welcome back to the Corruptive Chaos channel. Today, we'll be doing a bit of a different video. Normally, so far, all I've done are modern reviews of new films. But today, we'll be spotlighting something that I have a passion for, which is physical media for film and television. We don't have any TV today, but yeah, some great films that I want to spotlight. And also talk about maybe some boutique labels that, put out films where a studio won't step in to release something. So, first off, I'll be talking about Phenomena, which is this wonderfully packaged product right here. This was put out on 4K by Synapse Films. Their other notable titles that they've put out would be like Demons 1 and 2 on 4K, which is interesting that parallels this release in a way, as another company, Arrow Video, actually put out Demons 1 and 2 on 4K in the UK, in Region B, although 4K discs are not region locked like Blu-rays or DVDs have been. So this is a really nice release. I did actually watch the film. The transfer looks awesome. The packaging here, Synapse indicated that they might not even do a standard release of this, so I had to jump on it. The artwork, really great. I don't know how much you can see of that, but the point is more of the film, isn't it?
Have you any idea why they behave like that? Never done this before.
It's probably because of me.
So here you have Phenomena. This is a supernatural film, Italian film, directed by Dario Argento. Some people might consider this a giallo film. I'm not so sold on that idea. I think that it has too many supernatural elements and a lot of plot points and concepts are kind of thrown at the wall. In a way, Phenomena feels like maybe like 4 or 5 concepts for a feature film just crammed into one. This actually stars Jennifer Connelly, who, just the year after this, 1986, will go on to do Labyrinth, directed by Jim Henson.
Jim Henson, creator of The Muppets and Dark Crystal.
Where you go with a head like that?
So this is a really fun one. Like I said, it was made in Italy. This release, really spectacular. The 4K transfer is just absolutely wonderful. It also stars Donald Pleasance from the Halloween movies, Dr. Loomis. And yeah, there's a monkey in it. It doesn't really make sense. Like a lot of Italian films, it has a certain dream logic to it. And now the packaging also comes with this wonderful booklet that I've checked out a little bit of. It's really wonderfully packaged stuff. A lot of pages, great artwork once again, good photos chosen. And then it comes with a poster. I'm not going to unfold it here, but a poster of, I believe, the Creepers artwork on one side, which is the title that it was released as in the United States. It was not released as Phenomena. It was released as Creepers. Creepers as the title makes basically 0 cents. So, and then also the reversible side comes with the Japanese poster art, which is pretty cool. So, like I said, Phenomena was a particularly interesting release because of the collaboration between Synapse and Arrow Video. Arrow Video is probably a much bigger and well-known boutique label that puts out, a lot of classic horror films or cult classics from the 70s to the 90s mostly. I have a number of Arrow releases. I do also have the Synapse Suspiria 4K and the Demons 1 and 2 4Ks that I've already mentioned. Stuff always looks great, and it's really interesting to see these companies collaborate together. I believe they have near identical special features. So this release is great. I always try to get the North American release regardless of if it's a 4K because, like I said, 4K is not region locked. Really convenient. So, moving on to the next titles, this kind of fits in with Phenomena, which is that I've got the Forgotten Jolly Volume 1 set here from Vinegar Syndrome, course, Vinegar Syndrome, another pretty well-known company, puts out a lot of obscure stuff. And this Forgotten Jolly box set, well, it's just a case here for me, but it did originally come out in a box set. This is full of obscure titles, that's for sure. So it includes, as you can see on the cover, Trauma, Police Are Blundering in the Dark, and The Killer is One of 13. Now, I've only seen Trauma thus far, and I've heard some people say, you know, maybe these Jolly films should have remained forgotten. So anyway, like I was saying, Phenomena, some people consider it a Giallo. This, of course, is a Forgotten Jolly or Giallo box set. Giallo is primarily a genre of films that boomed in the 1970s and dwindled through the 80s and 90s. Mostly produced in Italy. There are a number of Spanish Giallo, actually, which this actually includes 2 Spanish Gialli. The other one is Italian, which is interesting. It gives it kind of a different flavor than the typical Giallo you see. I'd say if you are looking for an entry into the Giallo genre, which is it's like a mixture of slasher and murder mystery, and there are really like fun tropes that you see in Giallo time and time again. The killer's usually dressed all in black leather. They use some sort of knife or razor against their victims, and then there's a big, almost Scooby-Doo-esque reveal in some movies on who the killer is at the very end in the 3rd act. So like I said, I've only seen Trauma on this disc so far, and no, it is not Dario Argento's Trauma that came out in the early 90s. All 3 of these films are from the 70s, and they definitely show it. But I think it's really just a testament to the love and care that Vinegar Syndrome has for these kind of obscure films. Another thing in this particular release is that I don't think any 3 of the titles have English dubbing on them. Personally, I'm of the opinion that a lot of these Italian Giallo films or various other Italian films from that era should be watched dubbed instead of subbed. So I watch them usually dubbed in English instead of watching them with subtitles. And that gets at the point that Italian films really don't have a native language. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of these Italian pictures or some Spanish productions, they were shot silently and then they were overdubbed later anyway. Of course, a lot of times you would still get that original actor. I'm sure the dubbing is probably better in Italian than it is in English, per se. But yeah, so that's Forgotten Jolly. Vinegar Syndrome has put out 4 of these box sets, each containing 3 films. I got the 3rd box set in the box form, not just in this case here. I really enjoyed the ones in that. I don't know that I'll enjoy any 3 of these in this 1st volume that I did in that 3rd volume. So I just highlighted a couple boutique companies thus far. We're going to go on with another one, except this is through a big studio. We looked at Synapse, and then Vinegar Syndrome, and now we'll be looking at Warner Archive. So here's a disc from Warner Archive. They're a label that I go to look for older films, usually golden era Hollywood films from the 30s to the 50s. And so I got a few 1930s horror titles from them recently in the month of March. We'll be starting off with this one. This is Mad Love. So this stars Peter Lorre, and I believe this was an MGM production. Warner Brothers owns a lot of, I believe, MGM films, and older Paramount movies even. So yeah, this was not originally a Warner Brothers production, but anyways, still a wonderful, wonderful restoration on this. I should say that for every disc that we're going to be talking about. They all look wonderful on Blu-ray or 4K. So this is actually an adaptation of a novel. It was adapted as a German expressionist film, I believe, in the early 20s. And it features sort of a mad scientist gone rogue. He's just desperately in love with this woman. It's a fun time. Peter Lorre is just such a fun watch. This is one of his earliest roles in the United States, I believe. Before that, he got his start in Germany and then went over to Britain for a time. He's actually in a couple Hitchcock British productions in the mid-30s.
Was he Did you telephone me to come here? Yes.
Plus, Mad Love was actually directed by Carl Freund. I just mentioned in passing German Expressionism. Carl Freund, of course, was a cinematographer for plenty of classic German films from the 1920s. Probably most notably Fritz Lang's Metropolis and F.W. Murnau's The Last Laugh, both of which I have seen and both of which I would say are some of the finest silent films ever made. So Carl Freund, another one of these German emigres who came over to the United States eventually, he actually is probably better known than Mad Love, certainly, for directing The Mummy, the Universal film, which, starred Boris Karloff. Love that one as well. So, sticking with Warner Archive, I actually want to highlight two pictures which kind of go hand in hand. So that would be Mystery of the Wax Museum and Dr. X. So, Mystery of the Wax Museum and Dr. X kind of go hand in hand because, one, they have the same director, two, they have a similar cast, and three, they both use a very interesting color process. So both of these are actually in color. They used a Technicolor 2-strip process, which used only red and green, which normally in most color films of the golden era of Hollywood, they would use the Technicolor 3-strip process, which combined, yes, red and green, but also blue. That's how they achieved color in films like The Wizard of Oz. But so once again, these are two kind of mad scientist horror films. These actually were Warner Brothers productions. Mystery of the Wax Museum might be familiar to some people because there is a Vincent Price film based on the same novel from the 1950s. I like that one a lot, but wow. Both of these have really great performances from Lionel Atwill, who was in a number of Universal Monsters pictures. I believe he was in a number of the Frankenstein movies in the 30s and 40s. Once again, these have beautiful restorations. I don't know how difficult it would have been to sort of recreate that color process. So these might be even more accessible to viewers. A lot of people are hesitant to watch a black and white old school film. But also, these also have Fay Wray in them, who of course probably will forever be known as starring in the 1933 King Kong movie. These are just a lot of fun and have really spectacular makeup effects in both of them, actually. There's always a shocking third act climax that occurs and just have loads of atmosphere. I could say the same thing about Mad Love. And so the director that I mentioned directed both of these is Michael Curtiz, who actually directed a lot of Hollywood classics, but probably most notably Casablanca, which is one of my favorite golden era Hollywood films. I think that film is one of those that shows off the capabilities of having a robust studio system. So now I'd like to move on to my only DVDs that I'll be highlighting today, and these are some old releases. So all of the films that I've mentioned thus far, those Blu-ray or the 4K release have come out, fairly recently, the last 2 or 3 years. These DVDs, though, actually, both of these box sets came out in 2006. Here they are. These are the two box sets I was talking about. These are the Mr. Moto Volumes 1 and 2. These released by 20th Century Fox, which now doesn't really exist. So this really makes me appreciate the home entertainment division or department of these studios, because these are kind of obscure. I mostly got them because Peter Lorre starred in them. Like I said, one of my favorite actors, who's great in Mad Love. So in this, the Peter Lorre, who's born in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, actually, he's most notably not of Asian descent. He's actually playing a Japanese detective. I think if you can get past that casting fact, these can be a lot of fun for you to watch. So far, I've only watched the first one, which is Think Fast, Mr. Moto. So in this, Peter Lorre, he takes center stage. These are all also really short. I think they're all between 60 and 70 minutes long. They kind of feel like fast-paced detective thrillers. At least this first one really wasn't all that dull. And still, even for a DVD, I think the transfer looks really nice. I actually was able to get these at a pretty decent price, even though they are out of print. So I'll hope to get through these. Peter Lorre starred in 8 of these, actually, between 1937 to 1939. So just in the span of about 3 years, he was in a ton of these. And funnily enough, they actually ended with making any more Mr. Moto films because of World War II starting off in 1939 with an American fear of the Japanese, even though obviously the war for Americans wouldn't start until a couple years after that. Alright, so we're getting down the line. My next pickup is the It's Alive box set from Scream Factory. So this has been out for a while, I think. This is the It's Alive trilogy. All of them were directed and written by Larry Cohen, who's a bit of a genre favorite. These are like low budget. These are interesting because these 3 were released by Warner Brothers back in the day. The first one, It's Alive, came out in 1974. The second, It Lives Again, in 1978. And the third, quite a bit longer, Island of the Alive, in 1987. Scream Factory, they're another one of those boutique labels like Vinegar Syndrome or Video Synapse Films that puts out and typically restores these obscure or almost even forgotten films, or maybe they have a cult following. So the It's Alive movies are interesting because you would think that movies about these killer mutant babies would be a lot more campy, but actually they're quite serious. The baby makeup is really impressive. It was actually done by an early Rick Baker, who, of course, maybe the greatest makeup artist of all time. He did the werewolf transformation in An American Werewolf in London. And on with the packaging, I don't really highlight the packaging too much on the other ones, except for Phenomena, which definitely deserves it. Here, it's just housed in this somewhat flimsy box. And then each individual film gets its own case, which I always love. The covers are very nice. There are a ton of special features on these, from what I've seen, actually. After I watched the third one, I thought, wow, I actually kind of love these movies. Like I said, they're mostly serious. Also, the first one has a musical score by Bernard Herrmann, which is crazy. Of course, he was long done working with Alfred Hitchcock. Of course, he did great scores like Psycho and Vertigo. It actually gives this first one a bit of a noir or detective vibe to it, and that these really have the theme of parents wondering how to raise their children. There's obviously a fear of, will we have children that grow up to be okay? And I think Larry Cohen is actually commenting on that in a really interesting, clever, genre-specific way. Now on to a studio release. Most of these, like I said, have been boutique pickups that I got. So this one is kind of special because this is actually Ran, Akira Kurosawa's Ran on 4K. This is a wonderful steelbook here that actually has its own slipcase. So here's the steelbook, which looks absolutely beautiful. I love the artwork on this. And this was actually a Best Buy exclusive. Seemingly, this is the only way to get Ran on 4K in North America. There was a Studio Canal version put out, but of course that's, for sale in Region B, which is Europe. This was put out by Lionsgate. I don't know why there hasn't been a standard release of this at other retailers. So I thought it's been going in and out of sale, back and forth. Of course, Akira Kurosawa, also another one of my favorite directors ever. I think his films are really accessible, even if, you don't like watching black and white movies or you don't like watching movies with subtitles. So yeah, really special release. I have not seen Ran, mostly because I would like to watch Kurosawa's films he did in the late 40s through 60s first, until I get to his later works. that showcase a different side of Akira Kurosawa. Of course, he had a lot of personal troubles in, I believe, the late 60s, early 70s, and he had a slump of not making films for some time. So films like Ron or other films of the 80s and early 90s before he passed away also get, equally or more praise than his films of the 50s. So that's actually everything for my conventional pickups, but there's another item that I'd like to highlight that has been going on with these boutique labels lately, with the recent 4K or Blu-ray releases that really have started since 2020 or so, and there were a lot of notable releases that had issues in 2021. To start off, this is from Scream Factory. Obviously, like I said, this isn't a typical purchase, but these are actually the 3 discs here, which include Friday the 13th Part 3D, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, most notably was not The Final Friday, and Jason X, which is the one where Jason goes to space. So, Scream Factory in October of 2020 was putting out and shipping their Friday the 13th box sets. I ordered mine all the way back in like July of 2020. And, I was one of the first people to get it, actually. So I only asked for the replacement discs, and if you were unaware, yeah, these 3 discs needed replaced from Scream Factory only this month. It was in early March that I actually filled out their form to get replacement discs. So I gotta say, Scream Factory, these came very fast. The defective discs, I don't know really what to do with them. There's not any huge issues with them, really. I believe Friday the 13th Part 3D, there's an issue in the opening credits with the 3D. In Jason Goes to Hell, on the unrated cut, it's missing just like a handful of seconds of unrated content that should have been in this release. And then in Jason X, there's some audio missing, I believe, in a sequence that recreates Kane Hodder, the actor who played Jason, one of his favorite moments from an earlier Friday film, The New Blood, actually. If you know what I'm talking about, then you know. So these came really fast. The Scream Factory form was super easy to fill out and prove that I got these. Of course, I did order them through Scream Factory, so it was easy for them to confirm that I even purchased the product. Within that same vein of replacement discs, I actually have one from Arrow Video. So I actually got this replacement disc for Dune on 4K. David Lynch's Dune, not the brand new 2021 Dune. So this was put out by Arrow Video in, I believe, August or so. It was late summer. In anticipation for the new Dune. The hype was all building and people want to check out David Lynch's Dune because the new Dune is coming out. David Lynch, one of my favorite directors of all time. This is undoubtedly his worst movie. But the thing about this release is that I did not ask for a replacement disc for Dune. I do not own the Arrow Video limited edition box set. I actually tried to contact Arrow Video without them having some sort of replacement disc form you can use. And I asked for Donnie Darko theatrical cut on 4K as a replacement disc, which I heard has a big defect in a lot of 4K players. I personally have only watched the director's cut, but better safe than sorry though. So I made it very clear in my messages to their customer support that I asked for Donnie Darko as a replacement disc. And for some reason, I got sent Dune. Meh. So yeah, I guess I just have this now, and I recontacted Arrow Video. They tell me that a Donnie Darko 4K theatrical cut is on its way, but we'll see. So I guess this, along with the Friday the 13th discs, highlights something that's been going on with boutique Blu-ray labels, which is that a lot of these discs have big defects, and I just don't know what happens in the quality control when these go out to the public, when they start getting shipped. How do these things slip through the cracks? Of course, some companies, like I said, Scream Factory, they make it super easy to get that replacement product. But probably the most egregious example of this was with Criterion, probably the most beloved of all of these Blu-ray labels that puts out, you know, quality classic cinema, where they actually put out Citizen Kane on 4K, and they made people who purchased that to get the replacement disc, they had to prove that they destroyed their Citizen Kane 4K disc. That was one of their first 4K titles as well, which is just shocking. So anyway, everyone, thank you for watching this video. This was really fun to make and interesting to highlight these companies and boutique labels that I really have a passion for. I love horror movies. I love older horror movies. And so places like Arrow Video and Scream Factory and Severin Films and Vinegar Syndrome and whoever else, you know, they put out really great stuff, always with quality. I should also say most of these were loaded with special features. I'm not really an audio commentary guy, but I'll watch interviews and other sorts of featurettes. Most of these, like I said, were new, but you might go, well, how come you didn't just pull something off the shelf and say you got it in March? So what I actually got is what I got this month, no doubt about it. Of course, there are like a ton of sales coming up, but if you like these kind of videos of highlighting Blu-ray titles, let me know. Drop a comment. Liking the video also indicates that you like this content. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, everyone.